Man, John, I don't know about you, but man, I'm not gonna lie. I just really miss doing mock drafts. I really did. I really did. But oh well. So based on the results that we did for this current one, I am super curious to get your initial thoughts.
Yes, yes, I'm excited. It's mock draft season already. It's always great to jump back in and take a look.
All right, cool, nice. Because I think yeah, Sally had to do the first one without you for everything. Right, I got things kicked off though from the number 4 spot. So I think the best way to go about this. What do you think of the first round overall? Just your knee-jerk reaction to it all.
Yeah, I'm not too surprised because I know based on how things went last year, running backs would get pushed. We'd go back to the old days when it was almost all running backs. So when I see, it seems typical. You have Gurley going number one overall. You got most of the backs. So everything looks fine from a first round standpoint. I'm actually happy to see how Dalvin Cook went in the first round. Um, he's someone that I'm pretty high on this year, and I might even take even earlier than the last pick of the first. So this looks like a solid first round to me.
Hmm. Yeah, no, I feel like the first round, even with this being just like what, still mid-June, I really don't see, barring injury, of course, much change outside of the players coming in. Sure, maybe you might have a little bit of movement going around in there, but no, I think everything's pretty solid. I think a lot of it's just gonna be personality based. Like I know for me, I'm more of a fan of Zeke Elliott, more than all the other running backs. So I'd even take him higher than 4 for this draft. But no matter where you're going, getting one of those top 4 is a great setup. I will say I probably do differ a little bit from you on the Dalvin Cook spot. He's still gonna be high in my rankings for everything. I'm just not as gung ho. I feel like everyone else in the world is about it, mainly just because I know how last year he got off to a great start, and if we just project his like first 4 games forward, he definitely would have still ended up as an RB1. But that was still when oh man, God, what's his name again, John? I'm just drawing a mental blank all of a sudden. Jeez, this is what happens when we start doing this late at night.
Well, Davis Murray, Jim McKinnon.
Thank you. I don't know why. Like I don't know. Like I thought the Tavis Murray's name and like Leonard Fournette's face came in my head. Do not know why. They're not the same person at all. But yeah. um, but geez, yeah. The main thing for me, with Dalvin Cook is just yeah. Latavius Murray just wasn't active those all throughout pretty much training camp. Not active through preseason. And I just don't want him to be that vulturing back that's just going to really mess up Dalvin Cook's value. So I'm really interested to see how he's going to look going now that he actually has a full entire offseason with the team. And that's the one knock I have on Dalvin Cook. Everything else, I love the talent. It's just I don't feel like it's a home run opportunity as it was last year for everything.
Okay, yeah, and somewhere where we have our differences. I'm a big believer in Dalvin's ability coming out of college, and he showed that he was about to be very dominant last year before the injury. So as long as he's not hobbled by that, I think he can have a really huge year.
Okay, no, that'd be interesting. That'd be interesting to see how that goes. It's gonna be like one of those conversations I see we're gonna go back and forth on for the next couple months. All right.
Yep.
Now moving on from the first round, the second round is to me where things got really interesting. Like just from my perspective, doing this draft, because I'm always used to like the top, like I would say like what, like from here, these like top 4 or 5 picks in the second, they're always gonna be like super loaded with talent. I just did not expect the whole entire second round to be as top heavy as talent. Like people are walking away with a lot of good 2 first initial picks. And what do you think?
Yeah, that's something I thought about this year, where I don't really care where my first round pick is because your second round pick, I think you're almost guaranteed stud. And across the board, when I look at this, I mean, I find it a little bit shocking that Jerick McKinnon went at the tail end of the second. I think I'm fine with him even in the third round. But I think, yeah, the second round is completely stacked.
Mm-hmm. That's it's all right, cool. I love the debate. I love the debate, John. I'm actually okay with Jared McKinnon going that high. I think I felt the same way when I first saw it. But it's like one of those things I had to like kind of just when projecting him in that just from the role itself, taking over for Carlos Hyde for half point PPR formats. I know Carlos Hyde finished as like the RB9, And if I just like kind of put Jarek McKinnon in there, that dude could still end up easily being a top 10 running back. I'm just worried about the durability. And
Yeah, no, exactly. I would say durability is one of my main concerns because I actually love Jared McKinnon too. And still, whenever Jared McKinnon is on fire, especially with that Kyle Shanahan offense and with Garoppolo and what they have going on there, he can have games where he puts up a ton of fantasy points. So where I have him is probably just a few spots back. And when it comes to preseason stuff like that, if he's looking good and everything's clicking all around, I mean, that's a fine pick for me where it is at the
mhm.
10th pick of the
Oh yeah, no, no, I'm 100% with you on that one. Now that makes sense. I think the one, if I had to say I had a bone to pick in this second round, it's got to be Christian McCaffrey. Like me, I love Christian McCaffrey as a player. I liked him coming out of college for everything, but it's just even last year the role he's in a very forced role for everything. Like if I think of all these not like pass catching running backs, it seems like they are naturally I don't know, just getting open and making plays. I feel like the Panthers are just force feeding Christian McCaffrey like high volumes, which is great for a PPR. I know he's always still like in the top 15, but it's just that high. I feel like people are doing too much projection where they're like saying, like people over Devontae Adams, Keenan Allen, LaShawn McCoy. I'm sorry. I just feel like LaShawn McCoy and Christian McCaffrey are just not on the same tier when it comes up to running backs. I'd rather have Jarrett McKinnon, Jordan Howard, and Joe Mixon over McCaffrey. So that's one of those things where I don't know why he's still going so high because he's in the exact same situation last year. Because C.J. Anderson is just going to come in and replace the role Jonathan Stewart had. So he's not going to get the goal line touches. You're looking at him purely as a high volume, like pass catching back that just happens to also get like maybe 400 or 500 yards rushing.
Yeah, no, I see what's coming from there. I think the fifth pick is a little early for him too. I also like and AJ, Jarek, Howard, Mixon. Those are guys that I would be drafting above him as well. But he's also very talented back. Seeing where he was drafted in the NFL draft, and people are projecting. He didn't really have those big plays last year that resulted in a huge gain and a touchdown. And if he just rips off a few more of those, that could really help his value. I don't think he's gonna, get many more carries than last year. But last year he didn't even run the ball very well. If he has any improvement there at all, he could be a value.
Okay, I mean that's true. Yeah, so it's one of the things. Yeah, can't get worse from last year. I think he only had like 400 or 500 yards. So yeah, just a slight uptick in that. Then I could see him going well. Maybe he'd be like the perfect version of like what old school Reggie Bush was able to do when he first got to Detroit for me to really start seeing the value of this spot. But I can see that. I think the thing that really jumped out to me for interest is one of the reasons I did it here is the slide of like wide receivers like AJ Green and Mike Evans. Just from like being able to get AJ Green, it wasn't just this mock draft. I know I've done a couple others where he seems to consistently go towards the back end of the second, and then along with Mike Evans, even early third. If I had to pick a spot, I actually do feel like I would want to be in these top early round picks because then I can get myself an elite back, like maybe like a Le'Veon, a Zeke, a Todd Gurley, and then still come back around and like snag and like one of those elite receivers. Because let's be honest, like Mike Evans still superbly talented. Last year, the whole entire Bucks offense was just down. Everyone was hurt. Like people just got, I mean, not everyone, but just Jameis Winston kept getting hurt like all the time. So that messed up his production for everything. And then same kind of thing with AJ Green, where it's just the Bengals offense as a whole was just trash. And even still with that, I think he still had like 75 catches for like 1,000 yards and everything. So even a slight uptick in that, you can maybe start getting like that top wide receiver tier from both of these guys. That may end up being like top level kind of value, especially if you can start off your team like that.
Yeah, I think we were very reactionary based on how the seasons went for both teams last year. I love Mike Evans, and I've always been a big Mike Evans fan. I would probably be safe taking him mid second or even earlier. And I think as the season gets closer and people start to kind of forget about last year and start thinking more about next year, that he'll probably start to jump up a little bit. AJ Green, the thing that hasn't changed there is Andy Dalton is still the quarterback, and Andy Dalton will always play like Andy Dalton. So I can kind of, AJ at the tail end of the second I'm fine with that. But you're definitely still getting an elite option. And if I were to get him at the end of the second, I'd be really happy.
Mm-hmm. No, I'm with you. I think the thing that's most appealing especially when comparing a lot of these things, is that both of these guys score touchdowns. For me, that's if I'm going to get like a top end wide receiver, that's the number one thing I love about both of these dudes is they can easily get you 10 touchdowns in a year. So I can walk out with like a second round pick that's going to score 10 touchdowns. I'm down for that any day of the week. All right, so we pretty much got the second round down. It's pretty much just all top tier talent we're used to for everything. What was your opinion of how the third round went? Because this is where things started getting. I think a lot of opinions are going to start varying here with some players.
Yeah, I think there's players that are going way too high. Um, I know, Adam Thielen had a great year last year, and I do think he's talented. But with the new, with Kirk Cousins coming in, and just there being a different quarterback under center, we don't know exactly how things are going to happen. So I think that might be a little too high for him. I also agree when it comes to Tyreek Hill is also, we see what he can do. New quarterback there. There's when you come with these type of question marks, it's not someone who I would want to pick in the third round. I'm also, with the Tennessee running back situation with Dion Lewis there. I'm not too confident in picking Derrick Henry that high as well either. So these are a lot of guys that are going earlier than I would want, which is great. If things continue to go like this, that means I can get more values. But yeah, for the most part, the only people on this round that I'm really in love with, well, obviously Mike Evans, but I like the Alex Collins, Gronk, Doug Baldwin, and Josh Gordon as well. I think those are all great values. But outside of that, and in T.Y. Hilton's also dependent on Andrew Luck. If Andrew Luck comes back, he's healthy. That's a great pick there in the middle of the third. But yeah, I think there's a lot of guys going a little bit higher than they should here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was the take I had for this because for me the way is like the third round's always a really important pick for me because like highlighting the Alex Collins pick that I made here, my mentality is I either you're getting a great value where someone falls like a Mike Evans that you get, or I like the third round taking someone that has like a really safe floor, but he has that chance to explode into being something special for everything. And when I'm seeing everything here's just too many question marks. Yeah, like Tyreek Hill, we love the talent, but new quarterback change. We have no idea how that's going to go. You add in Sammy Watkins into that, and you just according to how reports are, there's supposed to be a connection there. We'll see if it lasts, because we never trust Sammy Watkins all the way. Josh Gordon, love the talent. I still don't trust Tyrod Taylor as the quarterback. Him and Jarvis Landry are going to make like beautiful music with all their 3 5 yard dump off passes, but I just don't know if he's going to be able to air the ball out and let Josh Gordon be Josh Gordon, where he's going to be worth like that third round talent. Because if you're drafting Josh Gordon right here, you're pretty much banking on still getting the 1,000 yard, close to 10 touchdown Josh Gordon at this point in time. And I'm just not sure if I'm going to get that from that weird quarterback situation. Yeah, we already touched on Derrick Henry. Still not knowing the role with Dion Lewis. Kenyon Drake is like, he looked great last year. I loved Kenyon Drake picking him up in free agency. Frank Gore scares the crap out of me because that dude just does not go away. Like that, his nickname being the Inconvenient Truth is the most appropriate nickname in like all of football. Because I would not be surprised if that dude just starts taking more and more carries from Kenyon Drake in these situations. So him being a third seems, yeah, that seems too high with just the uncertainty of the situation. Amari Cooper, ironically, despite how much hate I normally have for Amari Cooper every year, I'm more okay with that pick for everything just because Michael Crabtree is gone. I don't know how Jordy Nelson's going to mesh with Derek Carr, but I do know John Gruden loves Amari Cooper and he wants to try to force feed him the football, so I'm fine with that pick. And maybe a little bit higher than I'd want to do myself, but at the back end of the third, I can live with that. Now going,
Yeah, no, it's definitely not outrageous. And I agree with. I understand where you're coming from on the Josh Gordon take, but I do think he is a top talent, one of the best receivers in the league. And for all you don't know how long it'll take for them to switch to Baker Mayfield. And also, Tyrod had that one year where he was able to sustain Sammy Watkins. So that's probably why I'm a little bit higher. But I can understand your take there.
oh no, that was a good point. That's one of those things that is like in the back of my mind since it was like a few years back. I do remember that period of time when Sammy Watkins was a legit wide receiver one, and Tyrod Taylor was airing it down, and then how like mad Tyrod was when they traded Sammy. So that's a good point. Yeah, if you can get on the same page with Josh Gordon, yeah, I can see that happening. That's not bad. All right, now looking at the fourth. All right, and this is where we start getting the quarterback discussion coming from. I think historically wise, me and you've always kind of been in the same spot for quarterbacks. I will always respect elite ones, but it's just one of those things where I'm never gonna knock a guy for taking a quarterback this early, but it's if you can just do good, solid research, and you can hit on a quarterback in the back end. And I'm not just talking about okay, just look at rankings and just like I'll just take the number 10 quarterback. No, if you like legit do your research and you're able to know like hit on a Carson Wentz like from last year, Matt Ryan when he did his MVP year, Matthew Stafford when he had that random year for like 40 touchdowns, if you can do your research and hit on one of those quarterbacks, oh god, your team is going to be set for that one because it happens every year. There's always a quarterback that jumps high into I'll say like the top five, top six that you get like in the 10th, 11th round of the draft.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. And every year, I always don't start looking at quarterback until maybe eighth, ninth, 10th round. So that's my philosophy as well. Aaron Rodgers in the fourth. I think that's still great because we all know what Aaron does every year, and it's an automatic thing. So I'm not too mad about that. Deshaun Watson going at this early fourth. I don't know if we'll ever see him go at that crazy pace that he was on last year, but he could be a good pick. But yeah, I definitely would rather fill out my running back, wide receivers than going to quarterback this early.
Yeah, especially with Deshaun Watson, because glad I mentioned that crazy pace just for everyone to know. It's like I feel like if I literally like when it was going on, I remember extrapolating Deshaun Watson's numbers that he had during that like 7, 8 game span. If he did that all year long, literally he would have crushed every single quarterback record there was in a single season, passing, touchdowns, everything. And I feel like that's the Deshaun Watson people are drafting high. So I'm like, all right, you're expecting him to replicate historical numbers that no player has really ever done in that span. And he's coming off an ACL injury, so he could be gimpy. And it's his second year, so a sophomore slump could be in the table for everything. So I'm okay with taking him maybe if you have him ranked in the mid quarterbacks, but second, oh, as a second quarterback, I don't know. That still seems like it's going to be a reach, like all during this mock draft season.
Yeah, I agree.
Mm-hmm. All right, now the rest of the fourth round. This one, still even here. I feel like I see some names that really should not be here in the fourth round because this is still like the core, solid foundation of my team. So just looking here, Darius guys, I'm okay with that. We all know how rookie running backs have started coming back into fruition. Especially if he's going to start, if he can be that first, second down back and get all the goal line touches for last year. I'm okay with Darius guys there. We just always got to remember Chris Thompson will definitely take some carries from him. Larry Fitzgerald, that dude never stops. As long as he has consistent quarterback play that doesn't get hurt, he's always going to be in that top wide receiver 15 range. So getting him as a solid wide receiver 2 here, even if Sam Bradford can stay healthy all year, which he won't, but in a magical world, let's say he does, and he can connect with Fitz, he can be a low end wide receiver 1. Like Rashad Penny, I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan. It's like I love the talent. I remember watching him at the Senior Bowl. It's just when Seattle drafted him, they did not fix that offensive line. To me, it's the exact same thing there, and I just want no part of a Seattle running back behind that offensive line that early in the draft for everything. And then and everything else is still nice. I love Zach Ertz. For everything, Jay Ajayi, similar kind of situation. I don't know exactly what that Philly backfield is. I remember specifically with me and you last year, John. We were so like excited when Jay Ajayi went there, thinking he was going to be like that late playoff push running back. Yeah, that never happened. Philly did that hardcore running back by committee backfield, so not really a fan of that. How are you feeling about these picks right here?
Yeah, I have pretty similar feelings. I'm okay with Geist there. He could be that workhorse back in Washington. Larry Fitzgerald has just kept on doing it. He's gonna have better quarterback play. Completely agree with Rashad Penny. The offensive line there, we see what happens to running backs in Seattle. They did nothing to fix it, so I think he'll struggle. JHI, I also have the same worries as you. We don't know what's going to happen. I think we both like Corey Clement. Think he might continue to get touches, so maybe JHI won't really be quite a workhorse. So this may be a little early for him. And I love Sonny Michelle a lot too. And people will be scared because he's on the Patriots. Bill Belichick, what is he going to do? But they drafted him in the first round, and I think he'll be, he'll get the touches. So I think that's a good pick for the end of the fourth.
Yeah, Sonny Michel's gonna. I'm gonna be fascinated to see how he goes because, like you said, yeah, the Patriots running back weirdness is a thing, but the Patriots have also never taken a running back in the first round in my life, so that is going to be a fascinating thing to focus on. Interesting picks. I also want to highlight on. I think I'm gonna be banging the table all year long for Demarius Thomas because I swear that dude, no matter how bad the quarterback is, he still gets 80 catches. He gets 80 catches, close to 1,000 yards, no matter who his quarterback is. Case Keenum can replicate on that same level what he has now. Demarius Thomas could be a great little mid-round value there. Brandon Cooks, I feel like the whole world is split on Brandon Cooks. I like him, especially if you're getting him in the fourth round. And if he's going to try to take over that Sammy Watkins role, because Sammy Watkins still managed to randomly score touchdowns for him. If I'm getting a better Sammy Watkins in the fourth round, I can live with Brandon Cooks. And oh yeah, he's talking about extrapolating numbers. If Juju Smith-Schuster can do what he did, like during some of those periods of games, that dude was literally looking at to be a wide receiver, like a good in wide receiver too, during like an 8 or 9 game stretch. Granted, there were games where Antonio Brown wasn't there, but you just see the talent of everything. They got rid of Martavis Bryant as well, so I am perfectly fine with a late in pick for Juju Smith-Schuster. All right, and going into the fifth round, what jumps out on you real quick here, John?
Yeah, it jumps out. The one I see, Lamar Miller is drafted. I hate Lamar Miller, and I think we'll start seeing a lot more Dante Foreman, and I think that's a pick that you're going to regret making. Um, I'm a little confused on what I think of Allen Robinson at the moment. I think I'm going to have to wait until preseason time and hear more from camp about the chemistry with Trubisky and how Trubisky's looking and how they're all functioning in that Nagy offense. So that's something that I'm kind of on hold for. That's probably something I won't get solidified until a little bit later. I like Jarvis Landry a lot, especially with Tyrod Taylor and how he plays. I think he'll get high volume in any PPR format. I would even be fine taking him a little earlier than this. With Royce Freeman, he could be the only back in that backfield. So if things are looking good for him, I'm fine with that. Nothing else seems to be crazy. We have some of the tight ends gone, which I'm fine with. It's probably not something I would do personally, but that's an okay spot for them. We got the Detroit receivers going back to back here in the fifth. I think that's a good spot for them as well. So, nothing too crazy in this round.
Mm-hmm. No, it's funny. I feel like if I had I feel like if I had a siren. God, I have to disagree with you on the Lamar Miller thing. I am not a fan of Lamar Miller from a talent perspective. I always forget how he like burned the whole fantasy world. We wanted to take him like high in the second round that year. But if Lamar Miller's going in the fifth round, I know the whole whispers of Foreman coming for him, but I think that dude tore his Achilles last year. And I remember when Michael Crabtree tore his Achilles. He said that it took him like a good year and a half to really feel explosive again on that side. And if Deshaun Watson there opening up lanes, this might be one of those things where if I can get Lamar Miller at this point in time, I want him as my flex running back. I feel like he's going to do really solid maybe the first 4 to 6 weeks while they're still going to slowly work in Foreman from that Achilles. And then as soon as he starts doing good, trade him. Because, yeah, the whole entire season, I don't see Lamar Miller being a thing. But early on, like I can definitely see if someone wanted to reach on a Mark Ingram and take him maybe in the fourth so they can get like a top end running back talent and then get Lamar Miller just to hold you for those four games. I could see something like that working out really well. I'm with you on Allen Robinson. I have no idea what to expect from that whole thing. We still have two different Allen Robinsons. Are we going to get the one that he was just mossing everyone from a couple years back, or are we going to get the one where he seemed to be all over the place with Blake Bortles and not being able to hold on to a football? So I don't know which one we're going to get on that side. Jarvis Landry, yeah, big fan of Jarvis Landry. I do find it interesting that Golden Tate is going as high as the fifth. For me, just his limited touchdown potential to me knocks him down further where I'd be comfortable drafting Golden Tate. Like I'm perfectly fine drafting Marvin Jones because that dude's going to score. He's pretty much taken over the closest thing for that Calvin role where Matthew Stafford just feels comfortable just throwing the ball up. And there were some plays where that dude just straight mossed some people for everything. So I like Marvin Jones's potential there. Golden Tate kind of put him in that Julian Edelman role, and I would be looking at Julian Edelman like if without the 4 game suspension, if that got overturned, like late 6, early 7 kind of spot. I'm fine with the tight ends here. Just it all depends on roster construction. Where I was there last year. I was one of those owners that did not have a good tight end after all those injuries happened, and it things get bad. So sometimes if you can give yourself that competitive positional advantage, I'm okay being a little bit weaker at a wide receiver because I'm going to be able to find some in free agency later down the year. I'm not going to be able to find me a solid tight end after the draft unless I get super lucky with something through waivers. All right. And then 6th round. Let's see. I think the biggest thing that I feel is going to be interesting to watch Carson Wentz. Right now, I know with the whole ACL concerns, he's going to keep falling lower in drafts. But I know the recent reports had him being projected, or he thinks he could possibly play Week 1. Carson Wentz playing Week 1. I'm interested to see how far he's going to jump up. Maybe a couple rounds to that Deshaun Watson, Aaron Rodgers range. Jordy Nelson in the 6th round. That I remember seeing that. That one just. Am I being crazy here, John? Do I feel like that Jordy Nelson right now has no business being in the 6th round?
Yeah, I completely agree with that take. Jordy, as last year, whenever he doesn't have Aaron, things start to go downhill. He's getting up there in age. Uh, he's just someone I wouldn't even look at for maybe 3-4 rounds later. He's pretty much. I think this is way too high for him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I understand the appeal. It's one of those Jordy Nelson. One of those things you gotta be careful. It's the name thing. It's like, oh, I remember Jordy Nelson. He's always been that like late 1st round, early 2nd round talent. But Green Bay released him for a reason. He may be able to take over that Michael Crabtree role, possibly, and be a red zone threat. But I don't know. I feel like Michael Crabtree is also still 3 years younger, a little bit more explosive than Jordy seemed last year. So I just can't see it for everything. The thing, Jordy Nelson is actually not the only one here. I'm still saying Will Fuller. I'm curious to see what you're gonna feel about Will Fuller here, because I feel like he's in that same kind of conversation as Jordy. Definitely not as far off in my mind, but Will Fuller is a one-trick pony. I just can't realistically say he's going to just be able to keep getting 2, 3 catches and a 70-yard bomb every single week, especially for a 6th round player. 6th round player, I'm probably still getting like my second starting wide receiver right here.
Yeah, I think it is a couple rounds too early for him. He is someone who gets injured a lot, and he is pretty much that one-trick pony. But those deep, 80-yard touchdowns really do help your fantasy week. So, if it's a couple rounds later where he's like your flex option or someone that you play based on a matchup, I'm fine with that. But it is a bit too high.
Yeah, that's interesting. That was gonna be interesting. I can't wait to see how people react to that. The value picks I do love for this round. Just looking at it, for everything. Carlos Hyde, I've always been a fan of Carlos Hyde's talent. He stayed healthy last year. As long as he can stay healthy throughout the season, I feel like he is still a top 15 running back. I know the Cleveland thing was not the most ideal situation we all saw from him in free agency, but I don't know. I'm still not thinking Nick Chubb is going to come immediately in and just kind of take carries from him. I kind of put him in that same vein as Lamar Miller, where early on Carlos Hyde may kind of like pop out of the gate, and you may want to get a piece of that and then trade him. Long term, yeah, I probably don't see Carlos Hyde, but early on, I like him. Marlon Mack is just that's one of those pure opportunity things for everything. They did not. They drafted a couple running backs later in the draft, but still nothing really solid to challenge him unless one of those guys come out. So I'm going to be keeping a close eye on Marlon Mack all throughout this offseason to see. Because we do know the Colts will try to run the ball. Frank Gore was getting carries last year. And, of course, Chris Hogan, 6th round pick, great. I think it's good value there. I think a lot of people forget that before he got hurt, like those first opening, I think it's 6, 8 weeks or so. Chris Hogan was like in wide receiver one conversation because he just kept scoring touchdowns. Now if the Julian Edelman suspension holds up, oh yeah, I love getting some Chris Hogan, especially in the sixth round, late in at that. That's fantastic. Everything. All right, and probably the last round I want us to like cover hardcore because the rest are probably just looking at sleepers and values. How'd you feel about the seventh round to try to cap things off?
Seventh round, so weird for me to analyze because there is a bunch of quarterbacks, which is something I would never do. So to me, those are all way too high. Even though I do like all those quarterbacks, Breeze, Cam, Kirk, Jimmy. I can see Goff at the tail end too. That's definitely too high for Goff. I would not. There's other. I would probably want like Philip Rivers, Stafford, Luck, even Matt Ryan. There's a lot of quarterbacks I want over Goff, but I can understand how people draft quarterbacks earlier. That's a big disagreement for me. Um, Pierre Garcon, I like Garcon. He's a solid, flex option kind of guy. So I think this is probably a little too high for him there again. I think we'll see a lot more Marquise Goodwin and Kittle and other contributing factors in the Niners offense. So I don't know how heavily he'll be leaned on. Tariq Cohen, like this is too early, I think, but I know they are trying to put him in that Tyreek Hill role, so he could be very valuable. This is one of those wait and see things for me. A lot of this, you got to wait until you hear the buzz around camp and what's happening in preseason, how people are adjusting to the offense. The whole Aaron Jones Packers backfield, it's a mess right now. I don't know who's going to come out of there as the number one. I kind of like Jamal Williams. I kind of like Aaron Jones as well. So they're people that I'm probably not touching unless I hear something definitive come draft day. And Corey Davis, he took him a while. He was injured a little bit last year. He did end strongly when he had, I think it was that 2 touchdowns in like his final game. So I think that's a nice spot for Corey Davis, and he's someone who could well outperform a 7th round draft value. And Burkhead, with me being a big Sonny Michel fan, I think it's a little high for him. But yeah, a lot of people in this round are people that I wouldn't target myself, probably outside of Corey Davis.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I'm in complete agreement with you there. This is a really weird round to me. Yeah, yeah, this Packers situation. It's one of those things that stings because you like all of them are good. Like every single one of them when they started, they all produced. So it's not one of those things where it's like, oh, okay, there's gonna be one clear cut starter. I feel like it's gonna be the same thing as last year. You're just gonna get lucky and see who gets injured first, and then who wants to try to take over for everything. I will say bottom end of the seventh for Rex Burkhead. I am okay with that one just because of that Julian Edelman suspension earlier because that holds up. I feel like Rex Burkhead is the player that no one's talking about, kind of slipping into that Edelman role. Because I know they already tried to split him out a few times last year, especially when he was during that period of time where he got healthy. So he had some games, and Sony Michel is still a rookie. I love the talent. It's one of those things. I'm always afraid of Bill Belichick running backs. If they fumble one time, then they're done. I can see Rex Burkhead taking over that Dion Lewis role because that's pretty much what Dion Lewis was. It's like he didn't get the opening start, but as soon as one running back messed up, Bill Belichick said, "You know what, Dion Lewis, you're the one I trust. I'm just gonna put you out there. Congrats for being an RB2 again." Everything. Tree Cohen, yeah, completely agree. I think the Tyreek Hill comparisons are pushing him up way too far up the board. We have no idea how it's even going to look. We don't even know if Matt Nagy's offense is going to transfer over from that Kansas City system all the way. Pierre Garcon, love him as a pick. Probably a little bit earlier than I would like to take him, but he's pretty much the only legit weapon that Jimmy Garoppolo has. I just can't expect him to replicate that kind of success. Speaking of Garoppolo, I don't know what's this nonsense about Garoppolo being pushed up draft boards. He's great for the NFL. Love him as an NFL quarterback. As a fantasy quarterback, there's just not enough weapons for me to trust him. I don't care if it is Kyle Shanahan's system. I can see him being super like hyper efficient, but just not good for fantasy. Like the old school days of Alex Smith coming again through like Jimmy Garoppolo for everything. So that's probably the 7th round is one of those weird ones. Like going on from that, because I know the 8th round above, this is going to be the one where you see the most. change throughout the month. So I don't want to focus too much on the player by player. I just like focus on some sleepers, like just looking at the eighth round. The name that jumps out to me the most that people aren't talking about is Isaiah Crowell. I've always loved Isaiah Crowell. Even last year, I thought it was going to be his breakout year, but sadly, Cleveland sucks the souls out of players. I think him going to New York is going to be like one. If no one else gets on this, I feel like he's going to be a great sleeper value that you can get at this point in the draft. He has the potential to be a bell cow runner, get goal line touches. For anything, yes, Bilal Powell is going to come and like mess with him on third down, but at this point in the draft, everyone's getting pretty much messed with a third down. Isaiah Crowell is young. I think he's still hungry. I can see that working out well. The next name I'm really big fan of is Emmanuel Sanders. He's kind of be attached to the hype train I got with Demarius Thomas, where both of those guys are phenomenal wide receiver talents. If Case Keenum still reproduces, Emmanuel Sanders at like eighth, ninth round spot, I'm thinking you're going to get a great overall value from that pick right there. Is there anyone that you see jumping out for you for this round?
Yeah, for this round, we start getting into some rookie backs like on Johnson and Nick Chubb, Ronald Jones, things like this. I don't want to do too much speculating because it's only mid June now. So much is going to change with these guys and their ADPs when we get time for draft day. So those are guys I would definitely keep an eye on to see who's performing well. I completely agree with what you said about Isaiah Crowell. I think people, Jets suck. So people kind of just write players off on the team. But with the addition of Sam Darnold, and they have Teddy Bridgewater, and I think the Jets offense is going to be a little bit better than people are saying. And Crowell should be able to produce solid, running RB2 numbers. I'm expecting. So that's something I completely agree with. Outside of that, for this round, nothing crazy that's jumping out at me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then one thing, I think the last thing I think of for this round is just the Trey Burton hype. Me being the hardcore Philly fan I am, I love Trey Burton when he was on the Eagles. Sometimes, like I feel like for the bottom of the eighth, I'm okay with it. And that's probably me being like an Eagles fan talking, but just in general, I feel like still not enough has been shown. It's like the whole Bears offense situation. Like everyone's pumping the Bears players so high, and we just don't know enough yet for anything. Granted, it's a tight end. It's not like you have a lot of other better options. So if it was like eighth, ninth, 10th round, I'm fine with Trey Burton. I just don't want to see him like start shooting up higher in the draft boards where he's around that Kyle Rudolph, Delaney Walker range for everything because it's just too much unknown. And if we're going to the ninth round, only big names that would kind of pop up for me. Pry is still keep an eye on the whole Ty Montgomery situation. He was a starter last year. We don't know. Randall Cobb, love Randall Cobb's value. I was big on Randall Cobb last year, coming back where he's going to be fully healthy. But when Aaron Rodgers got hurt, it kind of curbed all those expectations. So that's great for any Randall Cobb supporters. You can get him as a great value late in the draft. Aaron Rodgers is back. Jordy Nelson is gone. So just for pure rapport wise, Randall Cobb has the most experience with Aaron Rodgers. I don't know if that may see an uptick in touchdowns now that Jordy's gone, or if Jimmy Graham's going to take all those, because I just don't feel like Jimmy Graham's just going to take Jordy's spot in the red zone. So I like Randall Cobb coming back up. The Bills' quarterback situation is weird. Kelvin Benjamin still is going to be a starting wide receiver. You're getting a starting wide receiver that's going to be a red zone threat this late in the draft. Is always is a good thing on that side. Those are the big names that pop out to me so far. What about you, John?
Yeah, in this round, I do like Mark Goodwin a lot. He did really well to end the season last year, and he has a rapport with Jimmy Garoppolo. He's someone that I'd probably get maybe a round or two earlier. Outside of that, depending on how the Robbie Anderson suspension goes, if he doesn't end up receiving any suspension, I think he could be a great value for where he's going. I kind of disagree on the whole Kelvin Benjamin thing. He is a starting receiver, but I just he just doesn't strike me as having the typical wide receiver qualities. So he's someone that you are getting a starter, but he's probably someone I'd stay away from.
Mm-hmm.
Um, outside of that, I think as we get closer to the draft and Andrew Luck is looking fine, he'll start going much earlier than this. But that's about it for this round.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, and that's a good point with Kelvin Benjamin too. I think I just look at him because either way he's gonna be on my bench. It's like I'm okay having a player on my bench that may just turn into like just their touchdown machine, possibly. It's a possibility, but nothing I'm too big on. Going to the 10th round for everything. Probably my favorite name, Corey Clement. I know we mentioned it earlier for everything. If you just go back and watch the Eagles games and look at all the different running backs between LeGarrette Blount, Jay Giant, Corey Clement, he just looks like the best running back on the field. He has the most explosion, the most pop. I know Darren Sproles was down last year too, so he was able to get a little bit more involved in the receiving game. So we'll see how that goes with Darren Sproles still being around. But if the Eagles knows what's good for him, if using that Super Bowl as any indication, Corey Clement needs to be more involved in the offense, and I can see him really jumping out as a possible late round sleeper this year. Other big name I like here is probably Sterling Shepard. Now that they got rid of Brandon Marshall and didn't really replace him with anything, I think Eli Manning really learned last year when he lost all his other receivers that Sterling Shepard can make plays, and that was without Odell Beckham on the field. Reports are saying that you're seeing Sterling Shepard line up more on the outside and not just in the slot as well. So I can see him being a good late round value for everything here. How about you, John?
Yeah, I see a couple wide receivers in this round that could end up being great values. Alan Hearns, without really having anyone else there for competition, he's definitely going to be either the one or the two. So, for a starting wide receiver in the 10th round, I think that's a great value. Jameson Crowder had a down year last year, but now with Alex Smith, he just seems like someone that they could develop a nice connection. So I think that's a good value in the 10th as well. Also, this is one of those wait and see things, but Julio, doesn't ever score double digit touchdowns. So, touchdowns are going to go elsewhere. And maybe we get a lot of touchdown output out of Calvin Ridley. So he's someone to keep an eye on. Martavis Bryant, that's a bit high for me. I wouldn't touch him here. But other than that, seems like a typical round.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if these are where you start getting, this is where you just want to start swinging the fences at this point in time. Where do your best research so you can get quality people, but these are the ones you're comfortable with. It's like, all right, this seems like a good idea, but for most of the people in the league at this point, they're going to end up drafting these players, and they're going to end up in free agency, like maybe in a week or two. For the 11th round itself, let's see, because I know this is where they're starting to throw in some defenses. A part of me wants Tyler Eifert to work out well. It's just he's in that vein where I was just giving up on. He's gonna find ways to get hurt, and so I want nothing to do with Tyler Eifert. I just really hope it works out for him. Danny Amendola is the interesting name. Because speaking of injuries, I know he has been probably one of the most injury-prone receivers that's gotten a label. But these last couple years in New England, he's stayed relatively healthy. He's gotten nicked up a couple times. But with Jarvis Landry gone, that is a huge volume of passes that just disappeared. So is it going to be one of those things where you see players like Kenny Stills step up? Is Devontae Parker finally going to be able to use his talent? Or with like Adam Gase really trying to like reshape that culture, I could see a possibility of Danny Amendola coming in looking good, and he just gets a high volume of just like pass targets to try to replace that Jarvis Landry role a little bit for everything. The only other interesting thing I see, DJ Moore is of interest to me. That's gonna be one of those things I want to keep an eye on. You know how Cam Newton really can just zero in on receivers at times. Devin Funch is still gonna be there, but even when Kelvin Benjamin's there, you saw flashes. So at this point in time, I'd probably want him a little bit later, but I'm going to keep my eye on DJ Moore. Duke Johnson, I thought, was going to be like an afterthought after they drafted Nick Chubb, honestly. But they just paid the man like what I think $15 million on a 2-3 year deal for everything. So obviously they still have plans for him. So if Cleveland still thinks Duke Johnson has value to them, I'm perfectly fine getting him in the 11th and 12th round, and he may be able to turn out something in. Yeah, that's the only thing I can really see here. I was thinking about Doug Martin, but That backfield in Oakland just part of me does not want to touch it.
Yeah. For the 11th round, I don't mind grabbing Doug Martin's one of those guys you hold on for a couple of weeks, see what happens. Maybe they're still conserving Marshawn, and we don't know how things are going to happen under John Gruden. So I think he's worth a flyer for a couple weeks. Wait and see how it plays out. I also like Duke Johnson a lot. I think he's going to have the same exact role he's always had. So in any sort of PPR format, he'll be valuable. I don't think Nick Chubb or Carlos Hyde are really going to cut into his production at all. I think it's going to be a split between those two. So I think this is still a good spot for Duke. Yeah, Danny Amendola, I understand where you're coming from there. I kind of think I have a personal I'm avoiding all Dolphins thing this year. So maybe things will change as we get closer to the draft, but that's my opinions on this round.
Mm-hmm. No, I'm with you. And I think just one side note, I'm not a huge Devontae Booker fan at all, but it still is one of those things where if Royce Freeman does not like turn out well, because pretty much I feel like everyone just expects him just to take that job and run, but he's still a rookie. If he's slow out the gates, Devontae Booker does probably become the incumbent starter. So it's one of those things to keep an eye out on him, just see because he'll just keep falling down the draft boards. He may not be a bad person to snatch up at this round for everything. Then the 12th. Pretty much my favorite player in the 12th is Mike Williams. The injury last year really helps people forget that Mike Williams was like a top 10 draft pick, which was, I still remember when that happened. I was like shocked that they went and got another receiver. I like Keenan Allen. Mike Williams' existence does worry me about Keenan Allen's touchdown potential because he is a big body. And if he can stay healthy, and because that dude looked great at Clemson. If he can stay healthy and start getting involved in the offense, I like Mike Williams as this late pick to be a sleeper. It's like throwing into a flex spot maybe much later in the year for everything. And of course, this is where you can start really taking a couple flyers at quarterbacks. Patrick Mahomes, I am not on the bandwagon yet. I acknowledge the talent, but just for pure logical sake, is an Andy Reid quarterback. Typically, Andy Reid quarterbacks do well in the NFL. And they got rid of Alex Smith for him. They saw something for it in practice. So Patrick Mahomes could be that quarterback that just comes out of nowhere. I definitely can see a lot of turnovers coming from him. But 12th round, maybe one of those things that like just take him, hold him for like a couple weeks if you don't need to have any other needs. And see if you got yourself like possibly another Deshaun Watson just coming out of the gates later on in the season.
Yeah. One funny thing is whenever you started to talk about this favorite player, I thought you were going to say Justin Tucker. So then when you said Mike Williams, I started laughing. Like, oh man, he kind of going there.
Hey
But
man,
completely.
kickers are people too. And Justin Tucker, I always will bang the table for it. He's the best kicker in the league. He hit a 70-yard field goal. He's pretty much always ends up being like my second best running back on my fantasy team every single year because he's just that consistent.
But apart from Tucker, I agree with Mike Williams. He was injured last year. He could be a huge factor there. So definitely one of those late round sleepers that can turn into something big. People hate on Marquise Lee. At this late in the draft, I wouldn't mind someone like Marquise Lee. He's someone, if he has a good matchup and someone else you have has a tough matchup or is injured, I would feel fine throwing him in as a flex play. So to get him this late in the draft, I think is a good value.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can definitely see that. Yeah, and then of course the last two rounds we just see like nothing but defenses and kickers going. I will point out, I did enjoy me being able to draft Deshaun Jackson at like the 13th round. That dude may just go undrafted. It's a possibility if he's just if he's that forgotten about. I just know looking back at film, it's not like he just disappeared from the Tampa Bay football team. Jameis Winston tried to hit him on some deep balls and he was open. They just could not connect. And maybe another year in the system, they have a little bit better chemistry. Getting Deshaun Jackson anywhere from like the 12th round back, even the 11th, I'm okay with getting that kind of home run hitter that may pan out a little bit. Probably will just end up in free agency, but I'm okay with the idea.
Yeah, no, I actually agree with you completely on that. I think like we mentioned with Mike Evans, people are really sour on what the Bucks did last year, and that's like stuck in their memory. But maybe Jameis Winston never turns into to be that great quarterback he was drafted to be, but he does sling the ball. They aren't going to have as bad a year as last year, and people overdrafted Deshaun last year, so I think that's an amazing value action, 13th. And I agree with you too. I would get him a couple, 2, 3 rounds earlier as well. So that's a
Hmm.
good point there.
Speaking of that, just going to the next round. Yeah, Jameis Winston going the last round of the draft. Like Dak Prescott, I completely understand because for us, he just doesn't have any weapons. We don't know how Allen Hurns is going to look yet. It's just going to be a run heavy team. James Winston should not be going in the last round of the draft. It's not like he doesn't have talent. If I can be guaranteed that I can get James Winston in the last round of the draft, that's what I need to have in my quarterback. They're gonna have a bounce back year. He's still gonna just be able to air the ball deep. I remember I had him a couple games last year, and he was good for still having high yardage games. It's just too many turnovers, and then injuries started messing with him. But sign me up for James Winston's the last pick of the draft any day.
Yeah, no, quarterbacks late. So if this continues into draft season, I'm pretty sure I'm gonna have a bunch of Jameis Winston's on my teams. And if he does start going earlier, I mean, I'm open to getting quarterbacks. It doesn't have to be the absolute last round. So if he moves up a few rounds, I think he's going to be a great value. Some of those other quarterbacks that were drafted here, I would rather go undrafted, like Mariota and Dak Prescott. But when it's this late, these aren't going to be your starting quarterback, and these guys are going to get dropped. Week or two into the season, so I think that's fine.
No, I completely agree with you. Do you have any other thoughts that popped on your mind for these last couple rounds?
Last couple rounds, I guess Peyton Barber is a decent little flyer, just because I know they have Ronald Jones, but we haven't actually seen anything from him yet, and maybe he'll still be involved. So that's if you have to draft this early, that's someone I wouldn't mind snagging at the end just to see how that plays out. Last couple rounds, yeah, it's mainly all these defenses and kickers. So, which also you should never draft a defense or kicker before the last 2 rounds. That's my philosophy. So if you're seeing my draft, you'll see a defense kicker as the last two pretty much always. So
Mm-hmm.
it's good to see that that's mainly what happened here.
No, I'm with you. I'm with you on the defense part there. Kicker a little bit slight because just if you can get an elite kicker, I still say those guys end up being running backs. They can get you double-digit points every week. So I'm okay reaching a little bit on a kicker for a spot. That I'm just gonna probably end up dropping a guy anyway. Defense wise, I pretty much like just to look at what the first 3, 4 weeks of the schedule gonna look like, and just base my defense off of that. So wherever the last like for example, if the Carolina Panthers here in the 13th round, they have a good, nice 4 game opening. Sign me up for that all day for everything. So that's pretty much what I'm always looking for on defense. I don't want to reach in the ninth and take a Jacksonville Jaguars, especially like defenses. The top defense never repeats. To me, that's just now just like a waste of a draft pick at this point in time.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. It seems to be changing from year to year. And you're right when it comes to there's certain kickers that you can pretty much always rely on, like the Justin Tuckers and Steven Goskowskis and stuff. So if you get them a little bit earlier, I'm not going to hate you for it. But what
I
I'm
hate
going
you
to
for not
say is
hating you, John.
it was really good to see a mock draft because I haven't really, with the move and starting the new job next week, I haven't been able to put as much time into fantasy football yet. So it was good to kind of see how things are looking right now. And in the next couple of weeks, I'll try to, finalize all my rankings so we can have that up on the site.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, probably gonna do this a few more times, definitely throughout the course of the off season for everything to see definitely how the trends keep going. So far, this is gonna be an interesting draft year. A lot more emphasis is gonna be probably put on your late round selections because everyone's gonna be able to get 2 elite players right off the back. So this is where your drafting skills are really gonna be put on display for everything. But yeah, the first successful mock draft. That was exciting. I'm glad to get it out of my system. But that's going to be it for this show for the FF Strings. Just keep in mind, once again, you can always hit us up on Twitter at NickFFStrings and at JohnFFStrings. And check out our website at thefantasyfootballstrings.com. And we now have our podcast on YouTube as well and iTunes. So we will see everyone again at our next therapy session.